Welcome to Murder Road Trip. I'm Jess.
And I'm Haley. We want to thank you for sticking with us for our slightly longer than unplanned hiatus.
Life got in the way for both of us, and then I travelled to America for CrimeCon. Then I had really bad jet lag. But we're back, so thank you for sticking with us and for understanding. Haley, how was CrimeCon for you?
It was really great besides meeting you.
Rude. So Haley and I met for the first time in person, and I went and stayed with Haley and her dogs, and it was really awful. And then we had a huge 12-hour road trip to Nashville. And if anything was going to end Murder Road Trip for good, it was going to be that road trip, but we are here.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad riding with you, but just the awful things that we encountered.
It was a very, very stressful road trip. We did have a lot of snacks and mixtapes and games, though.
Yeah, that was fun. It was really nice to have you, and because my town is so boring, I only took you to places like IHOP, Walmart, and Dollar Tree.
We don't have any of those things in New Zealand, so I was beyond thrilled to visit IHOP and Walmart and the Dollar Tree. I had so much fun.
You guys should have seen her at Walmart.
Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. It's so big. I was very overwhelmed.
And then at the Dollar Tree, she just kept going, everything's $1?
But it's not. You people don't put tax in, so it's not $1. It's a lie.
That's true. It's $1.10.
It is $1.10. So we had a really great time at CrimeCon, meeting all our friends and finally meeting each other. So, yeah, I suppose that's about it.
Yeah, kind of late to the game on the CrimeCon talk, but...
Yeah, I'm struggling to remember some of it because it was like a month ago now, so it was a really long time ago.
It was fun. Definitely meeting everyone, hanging out.
Yeah, I think that was the best part of CrimeCon was hanging out with all of our friends and getting to catch up with all these people that we have spoken to for so long as part of the podcasting world, and then they're there in person. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, should we get to the episode?
Let's do it.
Okay. We will be snacking on almond roca candy and Starbucks coffee as we make our way to Seattle, Washington to discuss the murder of Mia Zapata.
Jess, what made you pick almond roca and Starbucks for today's trip?
I was actually in Seattle just before I came to visit you, and the first thing I did when I was there was go to the first ever Starbucks for coffee, so of course I had to include that as a snack. I also discovered almond roca on my trip, and I'm completely obsessed, and they are from Washington. So I thought they would be perfect for me to snack on this trip, since you don't like either of them.
Oh, wow. What a coincidence.
Are you ready to go?
I am.
We lost the station again.
Keep trying.
I'm safe.
Hold on. Let me try this one.
Stop. That's it.
Turn it up.
Mia Catherine Zapata was born in Louisville, Kentucky on August 25th, 1965, to parents Richard and Donna. Her sister Karen and brother Eric rounded out the family of 5. Her parents were broadcasting executives who raised their family in the affluent Louisville suburb of Douglas Hills. Mia's parents divorced when she was a child, and all 3 children continued to live with their mother when their father Richard moved to the state of Washington. Mia was always a talented musician. She learned instruments as a child and was playing the guitar and piano by the time she was 9 years old. As a teenager, Mia attended Presentation Academy High School. She graduated in 1984 before enrolling in Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio, with a liberal arts major.
While attending Antioch for her sophomore semester, Mia met freshman Matt Dresdener, a bass player, while he approached her about starting a band. Previously, Matt had overheard Mia singing and he knew he had to be in a band with her. After Mia agreed to be the vocalist in a band, Matt needed a guitar player, so he asked a man named Joe Spleen if he wanted to be in the band. Joe said yes, so Matt moved on to finding a drummer. He asked his friend Steve Moriarty, but Steve was busy working with another band, so a different friend, Bob Lee, filled in on the drums. In 1985, Mia, Matt, Joe, and Bob named their band White Picket Fence. They only played one show. In 1986, Steve Moriarty was finally able to take over as drummer in the band, and they changed the name of the band to the Sniveling Little Rat Face Gits. In September of 1986, they understandably shortened the name to just the Gits. This would be their last name change.
From 1986 to 1987, the Gits worked on their music and played local shows. Their sound could be described as grunge, but is also referred to as punk by some. The band became pretty well known around the Antioch College campus. In 1988, the band released their first album, titled Private Lubs, on cassette tapes, which were given to the band members' friends. In 1989, the band relocated to America's grunge capital, Seattle, Washington. According to a Rolling Stones article written by Michael Azerrad, grunge music is a mixture between punk and metal music. Grunge music first emerged in Seattle in the 1980s due to a few local radio stations who were willing to play local music. Because Seattle's residents weren't hearing as much punk music as they were used to, local grunge bands filled in the void, thus popularizing grunge music.
In 1990, the band released their first single, Precious Blood. They also played their first Seattle show on Halloween, and they played a show with Nirvana and Tad at the University of Washington. In 1991, the band released two singles, Second Skin and Spear and Magic Helmet. They went on two tours, one on the West Coast and one in Europe. In 1992, the band released their first album, Frenching the Bully. In June of 1993, Atlantic Records made an offer to sign the Gits. A national tour was announced and was set to begin in mid-July of 1993. The band played their last show on July 3rd of 1993.
On July 6 of 1993, 27-year-old Mia had drinks with some friends at Seattle's Comet Tavern. At around 1 a.m., now technically July 7th, Mia left the tavern and walked across the street to her friend TV's apartment, which was located above a music studio. Before she headed up to her friend's apartment, Mia checked the music studio to see if her ex-boyfriend, Robert Jenkins, was there. She wanted to talk about their relationship. When she couldn't find Robert, Mia headed to the apartment. According to TV, Mia was angry that she couldn't find Robert, so she left at around 2 a.m. and said she was going home. At approximately 3:30 a.m., authorities responded to a call about a woman named Charity finding the body of a woman in the street near a curb at 24th Avenue's dead-end street. The woman's sweatshirt was pulled up underneath her arms with the hood tightly tied around her face and the strings knotted under her throat. The responding authorities were unable to resuscitate the woman, and she was pronounced dead at the scene.
The medical examiner determined that Mia's official cause of death was strangulation due to the drawstring of her sweatshirt being tied tightly around her neck. However, the medical examiner believes that if Mia had not died from strangulation, she would have died from the internal injuries she suffered. The medical examiner also found that Mia had been raped and sodomized. When he examined Mia's breasts, he found that she had abrasions on her nipples, possibly from teeth marks. Due to his findings and conclusion, the examiner swabbed the area to see if there was any trace of saliva or semen on her breasts. Following the autopsy, Mia was buried in Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky. After the funeral, a series of benefit concerts were held in order to raise money to hire a private investigator. The benefits brought in a total of $70,000.
Meanwhile, the police were working hard on solving the murder. The swabs from around Mia's nipples were sent off to be tested, and there was unfortunately no match in the DNA database. But the lab was able to determine that the DNA found was saliva and not semen. Police questioned everyone who saw Mia that night. They also questioned Mia's ex-boyfriend, Robert. He was more than willing to help the police with anything they needed. In fact, Robert had a solid alibi for the night of Mia's murder. He had been with another woman. Although he had a solid alibi, Robert still gave DNA samples, submitted to multiple lie detectors, and more. It soon became clear to police that Robert was not Mia's murderer. With Mia's ex-boyfriend cleared and everyone in Mia's circle cleared, the trail was running cold.
In March of 1994, the Gits released their second and final album, Enter, The Conquering Chicken. The album title was an inside joke about Mia's nickname, Chicken Legs. On July 8, 1995, Mia's murder was featured on the television show America's Most Wanted, but the feature did not lead to any solid tips. In 2001, the saliva swabs were tested with the updated DNA technology, but there was no match found in the system. However, the unknown DNA was entered into the database. In December 2002, police were notified that a DNA match was found. The chance that the match was true was 1 in 1.5 trillion, and the match was for a man named Jesus Mezquia.
There is not much known about Jesus, but we were able to find out that he was born in Cuba on December 25, 1954. He came to Miami, Florida in May of 1980 on a Mariel boat. Mariel boats were ships that brought refugees from the Mariel, Cuba harbor to America from April to October of 1980, after President Jimmy Carter opened up the US borders to Cuban refugees. The Cuban refugees were allowed to leave after Fidel Castro announced that anyone who wanted to leave Cuba could leave from Mariel harbor. It was later found that approximately 2,750 of the 125,000 were violent criminals who were fleeing Cuba. At some point, Jesus moved to California. We know that he was living in California in 1987 because he had a daughter with a woman on October the 21st. In 1992, a woman Jesus was dating relocated to Seattle for a job, and he followed. At the time of Mia's murder, Jesus was living within 1.5 miles of where her body was found. His girlfriend was also out of town, leaving him alone. It is believed that since his girlfriend was gone, Jesus was on the prowl when he saw Mia walking.
5 weeks after Jesus murdered Mia, he drove up next to a woman who was walking. He asked if she wanted a ride, and when the woman looked over, she noticed he was masturbating. The woman declined the ride and wrote his license plate down as he drove away. When she called the police said there wasn't much they could do. 6 months after murdering Mia, Jesus saw Valentina DeCecco at around 4:30 a.m. as she left her apartment for a morning jog. Jesus approached Valentina, knocked her to her knees, and clutched her throat. Valentina was able to get up and run away, but when she returned to her apartment, she saw Jesus standing at the corner, staring at her as he masturbated. Valentina did not report the incident, but after she saw Jesus' arrest picture in the newspaper, she notified police. Later, Jesus left Seattle and moved back to California, then finally back to Florida.
Prior to his arrest for Mia's murder, Jesus had racked up quite the criminal background. He was arrested for aggravated battery on his 7-month pregnant girlfriend, attempted solicitation, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and more. Jesus was living in Marathon, a town in the Florida Keys, at the time of the DNA match. He had been recently asked to submit cheek swabs as a condition of his probation. He was on probation for being in possession of burglary tools. At the time of his arrest, Jesus had been married for 4 years and had a 2-year-old daughter. He was working as a construction worker and a fisherman.
Jesus was arrested on January 10th of 2003 in Miami, Florida. Upon his arrest, Jesus denied ever meeting or knowing Mia. When police asked Mia's friends and family about the suspect, they said they had never seen or heard of Jesus. To be sure they had the right man, Seattle police took a sample of Jesus' blood. The blood sample matched the unknown male's DNA found on Mia's body. When the police were sure they had the right man, Jesus was charged with first-degree felony murder based on first- or second-degree rape. Jesus' jury trial began on March 8th of 2004. On March 25th, 49-year-old Jesus was found guilty of first-degree felony murder based on first- or second-degree rape. He was later sentenced to 36 years in prison because of aggravating circumstance of deliberate cruelty. The normal sentence for first-degree felony murder based on first- or second-degree rape is only between 18 and 28 years. But because of the aggravating circumstance of deliberate cruelty, Jesus was given extra time. Jesus appealed the conviction and still maintains his innocence. He is currently incarcerated at Stafford Creek Correction Center in Aberdeen, Washington, and has an estimated release date of March 20th of 2034. I wish there was more known about Jesus. It is rumored that he had a criminal past in Cuba, but that's kind of hard to verify. It'd be really interesting to know more, but because he came over on the Mariel boat, we just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is hard for us to access records from Cuba, so we just kind of had to go with what we could find about him in America.
Do you think he's guilty?
I think that if the DNA matches that well, then, I mean, there's no other explanation. How else did his DNA get all over her?
Right. And he had a history of violence against women.
Yeah, and this was the early 90s. There was not a lot known about DNA. Nowadays, people know about DNA, and maybe it would be possible for, DNA to be planted, but I don't think people were thinking like that in the early 90s because it was just so new. It was such new technology.
Mm-hmm. Thank goodness the medical examiner thought to swab her breasts and then keep it to be tested later.
Yeah, that was really, really good thinking on their part.
Well, I'm glad they found their killer. I know it was really hard on the community in Seattle, and the private investigator worked really hard. And because she was a public, sort of public figure, it was really hard for them to narrow down the list of suspects. I mean, she was performing, all the time. There were lots of people there. 1 in 1.5 trillion. That's a good match.
Yeah, that's a very, very good match. So, to end the episode, shall we play a road trip game?
Sure. So, for today's road trip game, we are going to play a version of the alphabet game. We will take turns naming 90s song titles as we spell out the gits. So, we will start with the letter T. So, Jess, can you name a song from the 90s that starts with the letter T?
That Savage Garden song, Truly, Madly, Deeply.
Perfect. I used to love that song. I wanna be with you in So good. I was like 7 and I was like, I understand this song. This is love.
Oh my gosh. I think I was, so if you were 7, I must have been like 11 because I'm old. So I truly did actually get it.
No one knows more about love than a 12-year-old.
Exactly. Okay, your turn, Haley. H.
Okay. H is hard. Okay. How about Honey by Mariah Carey?
I will accept that.
All right, your turn. E.
Okay. This one might not be from the 90s, but it's a 90s band, so I'm just going to go with it and you're going to accept it. Everybody by the Backstreet Boys. I have a feeling that was released like early 2000s, but it was a 90s band, so I figure it should still count.
It counts in my heart.
Oh, good. I'm pleased. Okay, G.
Okay, this one's super easy, and it's Good Vibrations by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
I don't even know who you are.
The look you just gave me was a look of pure disgust and disappointment.
It's true. I'm glad that came across.
All right, your turn with I.
This one was really easy for me. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. I've never seen the movie that it was like from, but it was...
Oh, what was that? Armageddon?
Yes. I've never seen the movie, but I remember the song was massive.
I think I saw it like once as a kid.
You were allowed to see that as a kid? I need to talk to your mother.
My parents were so weird about what I was allowed to watch. Like, I couldn't watch anything with like sexual content, but I was allowed to watch like Braveheart. All right, your turn. Or nope, not your turn.
It's your turn. T.
I'm gonna have to go with the Backstreet Boys classic, The Call.
I have never heard of that Backstreet Boys song. I haven't. Sing it. Sing something.
Yo, baby, I can't come home tonight. My phone's gonna die. He cheats on his girlfriend.
Genuinely have never heard that Backstreet Boys song.
I swear you have.
All right, last one, my turn. This one's easy.
S.
Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
Yeah, a classic.
So, obviously Nirvana, another Seattle-based grunge band. And when I was in Seattle, I went to the bar where Kurt Cobain was last seen alive in public.
Did you see his ghost?
Yes. No. I did see Sarah Stapleton and Matt Palin from the Karen and Ellen letters.
Oh, that's even cooler, though.
Yeah, it was. It was very, very cool. They're very, very cool people. Until next time, please remember to check your back seats, and we'll see you at the next rest stop.
Thank you to content editor Laura Taylor.
Make sure you listen to Hayley on the We're All Just Pretending podcast, where she gives bad advice on purpose.
You can also find Jess and me on the Playlist podcast. Playlist is a podcast where Josh Hallmark of Our Americana and the Karen and Ellen letters has different podcasters on to talk about their favorite songs. Every episode has a different theme and a new panel of podcasters.
You can find Murder Road Trip on murderroadtrip.com, on Instagram and Twitter at murdertrip, and on Facebook at Murder Road Trip Podcast. If you're interested in continuing the discussion, you can join the Murder Road Trip Podcast group on Facebook.
If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice.
Please stay tuned after the music to hear from some other great podcasts.
I'm Nina Instead, host of Already Gone, a true crime podcast focused on Detroit, Michigan, and the Great Lakes region. We look at older or lesser-known cases, stories that you won't hear anywhere else. In the weeks ahead, we're covering unsolved murders, missing persons cases, and looking back at a few resolved cases that made the headlines. Listen to Already Gone on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcatcher.
Hi, this is Hannah from the Film Rose podcast.
Hi, I'm Jen.
My name's Vanessa. Hi, my name is Stacy, and I listen to Our Americana because it reminds me how important community is. Because it tells us stories of people and places in small-town America that we'd never get to hear about anywhere else.
I love hearing about parts of our country that I didn't even know existed.
And the reason I listen to Our Americana is for the stories. Stories of average Americans, stories that I otherwise may have never heard.
I liked hearing about the younger generation moving back home to these small towns or moving out of these big cities because they were so passionate about community.
The podcast has definitely inspired me to want to visit America. Despite being such a huge nation, it is clearly the people and communities which give it its heart and soul.
Not only is Josh a great narrator, but he's a great listener. He's very good at capturing the essence of people and the essence of a small town.
Our Americana changes the way I look at America. It's not just my little town with my little struggles.
Josh tells stories I didn't even know I needed to hear and gives small-town America a platform to shine.
I'm Josh Hallmark, the host of Our Americana. I spent 6 months living in a van, traveling the country in search of what it means to be American. What I found was community and connectivity, and so I created a podcast to celebrate that. And what better place to start than small-town America? Whether it's the West Virginia mining town where a gay club is the center of the community, or a seaside village that was adopted by an orphaned orca, or a Minnesota town that was revitalized by a dog. The heart of these stories is always community coming together in spite of their differences for the greater good. America is so much more than what we see on the news, and Our Americana celebrates that. You can listen to Our Americana on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, and all your other favorite podcatchers.